it will be a kind of client server technology. There we also have to write some server side scripting as well as some client side scripting. So I've given you some examples yesterday, like a Flipkart website or an Amazon website, and any e-commerce website, maybe a bank website, where a user is provided with respect to some HTML pages, wherein it could be a form, it could be a survey form, whatever it is. Okay, whether it is a survey form or, excuse me, request in the form of a survey, whether you want to have an e-commerce website. Yesterday I think we have seen an example where we are trying to provide a popcorn site where the sales team from popcorn, let's say some example, some company, they have provided an online popcorn sales. So we have seen an example as well yesterday. Again, we will revisit on that example today as well. So where we were trying to give in or order the quantity we want, and then we're trying to pay using some master card there, and henceforth our request was processed, and then we got the bill total amount. So all such examples that today whatever we are seeing in the real world can all be implemented with respect to your CGI in Perl. And why CGI? I've already told you that CGI programming can also be used or done using ASP.NET from Microsoft or Java servlets and Java pages and all. But what makes Perl, give an advantage of CGI programming? So that is the ease of implementation is, and the convenience of implementation is more in with respect to Perl. So that's where it will help you to implement with respect to the CGI programming with respect to Perl. Okay, and we also have discussed that any CGI programming, before we really have to kickstart on some CGI programming, we have also discussed that it definitely needs a web server. So in my case here, I have taken a Linux PC wherein I have tried to add Apache 2.0 server as a web server. I have configured it locally so that I can host a web server locally just to test my scripts, how they are working and all. So in real time, what it is, remotely you may have Google or Amazon, they have their host their service, their web servers, and then they have their server scripts written on their servers and kept, and the moment you try to access their server, they will give you or a kind of some HTML form where you try to fill in your a form, as I just discussed. It could be a survey form or a cart form, right? Like where you want to buy some goods online. So it could be any of such type. So therein automatically where you go there and then try to fill in your request, and then we are getting some response. So how we get the response is from the server. And then we also have a concept of cookies. What is this cookie? And how is this request basically going? All these things we have to learn with respect to CGI programming. Whenever we are trying to send a HTML request from our PC or a laptop, whatever we are using, or an iPad, whatever it is, that entity today, which is a client, it is all the HTML form that we are seeing, which is in the form of a website. The moment you submit that form, how is internally this data being transferred to the server? So basically, we all know it is a HTTP. Okay, HTTP or HTTPS means it's a secured. Okay, hypertext transfer protocol, we call it as. So it has got some inbuilt methods that it is used, and therefore whatever we are trying to implement as a developer or as a programmer, we need to understand what are the methods in HTTP and how we can really post our request. Because whenever we want to give somebody, for example, we are in your home and then your relatives are somewhere else, and in olden days, or what we used to do, we have to give them some communication. So we used to write a letter, and then there are a postmaster who used to deliver it, correct? And then every time you write a new letter, it is something like whoever is receiving the letter can read it and understand the context. But again, whenever you want to write or deliver a new letter, you have to freshly write it. It is something called stateless. So I mean, may you remember, maybe as a end user, as a human, we remember, but in HTTP case, we call this as a stateless. So what is stateless? Again, I will discuss more. So where every time you write a new letter, it is fresh. In between entities, like the postmaster doesn't know what is inside, and only thing is he can deliver. to your relative. So if your relative is, let's say, a server kind of thing, an entity, he will respond back with what you have requested for. But okay, as long as you are storing what you have written earlier, what he has responded to you back, and you want to write another second letter based on that his response, then that kind of analogy we can call it as kind of cookie. Means because HTTP is a stateless protocol, so we have to always, and the browser does not know, so we call something called a cookie, wherein whatever the information sent in the earlier request, whoever is the client receiving it, he will store that information with him, so that in the next request he can do a piggybacking based on this particular response. So such things are called cookies. So I'm giving an analogy of this. We will see on the slide more on that. Okay, so we will now kickstart with today's session more in detail. I'm trying to share you a page which actually shows us how a CGI architecture looks like. So that would be more easy for us to understand from the analogies that we just discussed. So let me share you the browser. So here there is a web client, that is like maybe our laptop or a desktop, where as an end user we are trying to operate on some kind of form that we discussed. Now what will happen is, the moment a request is given, so most of the time how are we having our forms and all, they are written in HTML. So now in the HTML form, the moment you are submitting some data, so it is using which protocol across. If you see the straight line here, so he is trying to say that it is using a HTTP protocol. Therefore, so this web client request, whether it on the server side, what are the entities we have? We have a web server, which is a physical web server there, and then we have a server side script which has to respond to this client side script, because there could be multiple forms, right? Today we have a lot of forms. If you take even Flipkart example, if I take, right, today you have something to search with mobiles, you can want to search something with respect to laptops, maybe you want to search something with respect to some fashion wear, whatever you take, different. So every form is different and every request is different, and therefore there should be a server side script to respond to that particular form or a request that you are submitting from the client to the server. Therefore, the server side scripts are also very, very important, and they are crucial. So wherever CGI program is sitting, they are sitting on the server side. What is sitting on the client side? It is all the HTML forms that are sitting on the client side. So that how I am using in my examples, I will also show you how I have organized that folder structure. And then, so the web server, as I told you in my example, I am using the Apache server, which is on my local host. And then my server scripts are also based on local host or the web server. I have to store in the web server. So local host, when you're trying to host, have your web server, there is some folder structure that defined. In general, standard is like conventionally they use CGI-bin kind of folders. But in my case, because I'm using a Linux machine, I have a different folder structure called where www and then HTML. I will also show you that. And then a database. So if at all you want a database where you want to store some data, ideally in my web server here in the same folder structure, I am storing a file. But now you have in real time, you have a huge number of files. I can't just store it in single folder or something. Therefore, we need to have MySQL server, or you can have maybe MongoDB, or there are a lot of open source as well. So you can try to have or host your web server, which is also embedded and talking to a database, so that a database can be integrated inside a web server, or it could be a remote database as well. Today we have storage area networks, we call SAN networks and all, so which are still acting as a physical databases, which may be in a remote location, but still they can try to access them. The web server can access those databases and store your data there. So that is a very high-end usage. But for our understanding right now, what we have to be very focused on is we have HTML documents or HTML forms that we have to develop on a website, on a web client, okay? And then on a server side, we have the CGI scripts which are supporting our Perl. And that is all our web server. And therefore, currently we are using the database as nothing but a folder inside our web server. So let me show you that analogy right away so that you will be able to correlate. Therefore, if we look at, because I will not be able to show all the parallel folders, my web server folder. So on this folder, I have stored all my Perl scripts, or they are also can be called as CGI scripts. Conventionally, all these Perl scripts are stored on the server as .cgi. For us to make sure that we are using a CGI program. Okay, and then if you see, there are some files like survey data or survey data.dat file, which is nothing but a data file, or we have a survey data.txt files. So these are basically what I'm trying to use in the same web server. I'm using that as a database. In the same folder structure, I'm saving some data. So whatever you are, okay, now let me show you the client side also. So on my client side, if you look, okay, so on my client side, let me show you very clearly the HTML documents or all the scripts that I have written. For example, I will group them into one place, so that's easy for you. Okay, so I'm just creating a folder so that they're all grouped in one place for you and it's easy to understand. And let me share that folder as well. So that also I have named as HTML. Okay. Books folder. So whatever is the path, wherever you want to store on your local PC. So that's the path where I have my HTML documents stored. So this is I'm trying to replicate the architecture that I've shown you, where it is a client side, all those HTML documents or the forms that we have written, the code is in HTML pages, and whereas all my CGI scripts or the Perl scripts, which are supposed to be on the server side or on my Apache server folder, which is under the side. Whenever I trigger a HTML document or a HTML form, automatically what will happen, it will go to the request should go using a HTTP protocol to your web server, which is my Apache server here. So it will come, the request will come to this folder, so and then it will respond. So this is the duty or responsibility of a programmer to link these two by using your HTTP request and the different syntax that a CGI supports, that we will see in the slides more. Okay. And therefore, switching back to our PPT, store in CGI bin. If you are using a Windows PC and all, you can try to have a CGI-bin folder so that you can store all your CGI programs. What is a CGI with respect to Perl? They are nothing but your Perl scripts, but they are stored conventionally as .cgi. Okay, so we have nothing to confuse there. It's just a pure Perl program, but we generally store them as .cgi. Okay, now a request for a CGI program to be executed can be made with a simple link. So now how do I request? Now I have a HTML document. I hope you people might be aware of HTML tags. So for example, if I show you this is something called in between the A in between less than and greater than symbol. It's called an anchor tag. So this an anchor tag is something like it is trying to anchor something. So where I will give you the link to my web server. Well, let's say it's a google.com. So I will give you google.com/whatever is the page as a programmer. Automatically, when an end user is clicking on HTML form to fetch some data on that, this link he has to click on. Maybe this link can be embedded below a button, or it could be embedded directly as a link. How I will show you one more example directly. So let me, yesterday we have already seen that simple programming, but for convenience I will show you before I proceed. Excuse me. So here, whenever you are looking into the web address, so my local PC, I have a address of 10.113.110.207 is my IP address. So ideally in the real world, what are we doing? Instead of IP address, we have the DNS name, the domain naming server is there. So DNS, so we cannot remember the IP address as humans. So most of the time we are remembering as google.com or flipkart.com. But internally, how does a router or whatever the network elements, how do they understand it? They can only understand it based on the IP address. They cannot understand the names. So the DNS domain naming server, there is a entity in between, which will map a given name like google.com to a maybe the respective IP address. So if you want to find what is the IP address being used by Google, you can go to your command prompt, just do ping google.com. It will return you with IP address if they have enabled it to disclose. Okay, so now let me show you the example clearly. If I'll share the screen once. The folder structure internally where I was storing it as where www.html. But if you look into the browser window, I am not giving any such path. I am directly giving the IP address of my own PC because it is a local web server and therefore it requires my own IP address. I have to give this format. But if it is a remote, then I can either give an IP address or most of the time we go with google.com or whatever is the server for we are using for writing your program. Okay. And now if you see this, my web server has got all these CGI programs. So what all you have to do as a programmer is you write all your CGI scripts and store it in the server like this. And now on the client side, as I have shown you, on your local PC, you can store all your developed HTML documents. And therefore the moment you select or type something on the HTML and you post your request, it will come to the server and it will respond based on what is written in this CGI. Okay. Now, so first we'll see also a HTML page and we'll see a test request. So now, hope this is visible to all. Yeah, see, this is my HTML document. Now, HTML program, what I have written on the client side. So what am I writing here? This is our first Perl CGI program is what I have written here. So now moment, click here to run the CGI program reply.cgi. So what is it telling? If I try to directly right click on it and go to view page source. So you can directly view what is the source code of it. So now if you look into this, here I have given HTTP of 10.113.110.207 reply.cgi. So what am I trying to give here? Like as I just discussed, I am giving the web server address followed by the which script it is supposed to invoke the moment I click on this href. Href is nothing but anchor tag which will refer to this particular link. So now if I just if I try to refresh this back, I'll drag it again. So what is happening the moment if I show you that particular page? Okay, so this is our first Perl CGI program is what it is written in the code, in the HTML code, and the moment I click on this, it is showing greetings from your web server. So how am I getting this response? Because if you look into this on the browser, it is giving you with my web server / reply.cgi. Why it is choosing reply.cgi? Because in my script, I have clearly mentioned, if you look at my HTML script, view page source, so I have clearly mentioned which script this has to invoke or whatever is the hyperlink. So therefore, that's how we see that this particular message has come. So now how is this message coming? How is it written? Let us see the CGI program, what is written there. So I'll also share the CGI script which is written so that you will see what is written there, why it is returning this message saying greetings from your web server. Okay. So this is a very simplest program which is written to understand our first CGI concept. And let me go back to this file. Okay, so I'll share the screen. Already discussed with you, CGI script is nothing but it is a conventionally we are saving it as .cgi file, but it is nothing but a Perl file. Now, since we have to understand that we are not typing or trying to expect an output in the command line, we are trying to give the output onto the browser. So what a browser understands, it can only understand a HTML document or HTML content. Therefore, using our Perl, what we have to do is we have to print our request or responses in such a way that they are responded or typed back as a HTML tags. So if you look at this program, so this is the reason why Perl CGI programming is more easy. What you have to do just is just do a print what you want, and rest all will be taken care. We know already normally the print statement in Perl, right? So that's how we are embedding all this text as a print. So now if you look into this, is saying content type text HTML. What is this all? We will see again. So XML version, what he has to use. So he is giving some comments. Okay, and now, so if you look at all this text here, so what is he saying? The title is saying reply.cgi example. That's what it says. And what is it trying to give in the body? The body is more important, that will contain that will be displayed, because this is a header. This is all internal HTML tags that it has to use. So what is the body of the HTML is showing you? It is showing greetings from your browser. So how you want to display, what color you want to display, that all, as long as you are well aware of HTML tagging and color coding, you can play around with that. And therefore greetings from web server is what finally it has to print in a HTML format. That's what we have already seen. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That's what we have already seen on our screen. Okay. You got a response from the web server, and why it is only showing greetings from your web server. That's all we can see. Now you don't want greetings from web server, you want to write some other text, still we are allowed to do that. So we can try to modify that as well and see as an example whether it will reflect what we are intending to do or not. So in the reply.cg web server, hope all of you are understanding. That's the context, right? So if I just do this and save it, okay, now I go back to this. If I have to do a refresh of this, so you see that if I don't want to refresh, I can still go back and then click on this HTML page, then still you see the same response. Hope all of you are understanding. Correct? So this is how a simple HTML body is what we have written in the CGI program. But what else is extra in CGI? The why it is easy, as I just described and showed you, whatever is our Perl program, we are writing the same Perl program in the CGI file. Okay. And how are we typing it? Just we are using just a print statement. And this is a simple example to start with. Okay. Now going back to our slide, we'll see method called get. There are different methods for a HTTP module. So in Perl, there is a direct inbuilt module called cgi.pm. So if you are using that direct cgi.pm module, you can directly use those inbuilt functions and you will be able to proceed further. So we don't have to bother much on how I have to get this output and all, because everything we have inbuilt functions in Perl. That makes our life easy to write a CGI program, and that is why Perl CGI is more famous. Okay, so now going back, as I already told you, I just discussed with you how a HTML tag is embedded in our program, the CGI program or the HTML document or the HTML form that we wrote. When you type, click on it, what has happened. Just now we have seen all this example now. Okay. So the usual way of invoking a CGI program is through the action attribute button. So there is a action button, or you can write, we call it as an action with respect to while writing a program. So the moment you say action in HTML, and then you can give some attribute to it. Attributes, what is an attribute means? Like what it has to do, how it has to respond, how it has to post the request and all. So we'll see more in detail on that. So now a CGI program action. So a CGI program generally creates the response by sending output to the standard output stream using print in Perl. I have already discussed this in our example, right? What we have not used anything much. We have used print and then some HTML tagging in the print statement, followed by what we have to type on the browser. So that made our life more easy, isn't it? Just using a print statement, we have done that. Now, CGI program will usually have to provide content type header. So what does content type header text or HTML is? This will be the last line of the response headers and must be followed by a blank line. So we'll see what again in our example. The rest of the response is created by printing the HTML code designed to the standard output. So now in our CGI programming, whenever we are saying content type of is text or HTML, that is generally a standard tag that generally we use. So whenever you are defining your CGI program, if you start that with content type, so that is otherwise called HTTP header. So the content hyphen type is a kind of environmental variable, okay, and then we are trying to define whether it could be a text or HTML, then followed by a return character and a new line character is what we are trying to define there. If you are looking into the example here, so this can be also followed by /r /n/r/n like this. So just to maintain some new line character and return spaces and to distinguish between the rest of the HTTP header. Now this is a part of HTTP header which is sent to the browser to understand the content. Okay, so your browser is sending your request using this particular HTTP header. So the moment your program sees this, it will think, okay, now this HTTP request is coming and this is a HTTP header. So all the HTTP header will be in the following form, right? So what was the form we have just discussed there? So it could be HTTP, field name, and then a content. So that's how most of the time it is. So I can also type you like here. So how generally most of the time it will be like HTTP field name and the field content. This is how most of the time your content looks like. The HTTP header looks like, I'm sorry. So your HTTP header will look like this. A HTTP field name followed by a field content. So what is this? If you see, this is the field name, content type, and this is the field content. So what is the content? It could be a HTML or a text. Okay. Now next, query string. So now, as I told you, from your HTML page, you want to post a request. So ideally, that method is defined by post. So HTTP has got get and post requests under it, means it is the HTTP protocol, I mean. So now these two methods will help you to carry the data from your browser to the server. Okay, and how is the data is formatted into a query string? It's because why it should be into a query string? As a client, you don't know, so you're trying to query. Maybe you're posting your data and asking, now what is my response? So it's a kind of query, as a client always does, to the server, and whatever the script written in the server side will respond you back with a response. Now each form of request includes the information in a different way. Like what does that mean? Each form of request means if it is a get request or it could be a post request. So if it is a get request, the query string is appended to the URL of the request with a question mark used to separate it from the first part. So whenever you have a URL, okay, the query string, whatever you have, right? So if that all you are using a get method, whenever you have a query string, that will be, whenever you have a URL, for example, let's say, so that will be differentiated with respect to this two, with a question mark. In a post request, the query string is sent as a part of the data. So most easiest thing for us is to follow a post request. In both cases, the query string is formatted the same. I hope you are not getting confused with the terminology. When I say query string, it is nothing but whatever the data you are submitting in your HTML page to the server. That is a query string. Okay. Now, how you have to format or write a query string? That is what he is trying to tell. Each unit of data sent is encoded as a name and value. So if you are looking into this, I hope you will be remembering what in Perl hashes. So always a hash has got a key value pair return. So something in the real time use we are going to see further. So then the name is usually a value of the name attribute of the form, and the value is a string representation of the widget value. So how it is, maybe you want to have a button or you want to have a href. So that's what he's trying to tell. So just give a minute. A query string format. So each unit of data is sent is encoded is what just we have seen using a name equal to value. This is how the format of a string is. A query string is. Now you want to have several units of such data to be sent. So how do we send them? We have to use ampersand so that it will separate. The moment it sees ampersand, it will think, okay, each is a separate key value pair. So now special characters in the name value are encoded. So what are the special characters? Maybe a space. Okay, the code is a percentage sign. Then you want to follow it with a hexadecimal code. You want to send some, let's say some color code. You want to have your HTML page or response in some color. So generally we have hexadecimal coloring codes. So we can use a percentage sign there. Similarly, if you want to use space, what is a special character? It's a special character, right? So if you say percentage 20 means it will automatically respond with some space there. So 20 is the number given. It's a code given to the special character space. And he is clearly also telling some browsers will encode space as plus sign. Means if you're writing this kind of code, maybe some browsers may not support that. So whatever your response expected output, you may not get in that browser. If you see in our daily usage, sometimes you don't see what your friend is able to see. Then you will realize that okay, he's using a different browser than what I'm using. So that could be dependent on the browser what they are supporting. So in ideally, all of them are supporting standard because they use a standard HTML, or they also have the standard CGI programming and all. But sometimes there could be some specific proprietary things where it may differ. Okay. Now, when a post method is used, the query string can be read from the standard input. So what is our standard input? That is our keyboard. So you can also post using your standard input using this environment variable, content length. This is an environmental variable that tells how many characters it can read. So whenever you are posting some method or a query string using your post method, so how much, till what line it has to read, how much it has to read, and all will depend on the content length, which is an environmental variable that is set. So should you set this? No, because the moment you have a CGI module already installed on your Perl, on your PC, this generally gets set. Okay. Similarly, when the get method is used, query string is given by the value of the environmental variables. So what is that? Using query string. This is an environmental variable which will tell that okay, this is a get method. Now there is also a small caution that they are also suggesting us. Never use the get method if you have a password or other sensitive information to pass to the server, because the get method has size limitations is one thing, and only 1024 characters can be in the request string. So if you have your sensitive information and if it is maybe it is not encoded properly, and if it is exceeding this length, then you will not be able to, get method will not be able to support us. Okay. So writing a CGI program from scratch is very tedious. We know that, no? So so therefore creating HTML requires numerous print statements. Retrieving data from a query string is very tricky. So now whatever we have discussed so far, right? So we feel that okay, there is something to learn, but at the same time there is also, it is more trivial to understand. Therefore, one of the reasons why the Perl is popular, as I already discussed, is it has got a powerful pattern matching facilities which greatly ease the task of parsing a query string. Now let's say you are sending some string. As I already discussed, in a get method, the query string is sent to the server with a question mark. Now what we discussed earlier, the first one before the question mark is a URL, after the question mark is a content. Now who will have to parse this? It is the interpreter or the programming language in which this whoever is the server side program, right? What are the server side program? It is a Perl program, which because we are using Perl. And now because it has got inbuilt pattern matching facilities, it is easy for us to parse the get method and separate what the URL as well as the content which is coming from your client. So that's what makes your life more easy. That is why Perl CGI is more popular as well. Okay. Now how do I know whether my Perl is supporting CGI or not? So if you use cgi.pm file, it's a Perl module, you can, as long as you don't get any errors, compilation errors, or if even you go to your installation folder in Perl, you will should be able to see the CGI Perl module. Then you know, or you don't want to do that, you just type a post request or a query string, it should be able to support, then you know that there is a CGI program installed automatically along with your Perl. Most of the time along with your Perl it gets installed, so we need not have to worry. Okay. Now shortcut functions returning string values containing HTML code. Now what is this CGI Perl module? What are the advantages of this module? Because of this we told that I just discussed that Perl CGI programming is easy. So in that case we should also know what are all the CGI module in the Perl is providing us or facilitating us to write a quicker or a better CGI program. So what is it trying to tell us? There are shortcut functions that return string values containing HTML code. So you do not have to format anything. You need not have to worry on different style of encoding and all. So it has got some inbuilt function. So what are all those? Let's see. So note string must be printed out actually to become a part of the response. Okay. Some functions take no arguments. In our earlier example, right, the reply.cg file I have shown you. What did we do? Just we used the print. Did we use anything else? Did we try to use any formatting? We are just trying to print, and output print is going to the HTML page. So we just used one single print statement where we have written what all we want, all the HTML tags, and then we got a response, right? If you remember our greetings from your web server, hope all of you understand all that I have typed. So what did I do? Just one single, the body of the HTML tag is what I taken care. The rest is all HTML tags are there, which I did not have to bother much. Okay. So some functions can be given a single argument which becomes the content of the tag. Now, if you look into the slide here right now, see what is more easy. Now, if I say print h1 of a header, now what it will do? Internally, it will automatically format it to a HTML tag like this. See, if you look at our HTML page earlier, I have shown you anchor href or 10 dot whatever the IP address / my program, that link I have given. If you are writing a HTML page, you have to take care of this particular format which I just highlighted. But if you are writing a CGA program, and if I want the browser to understand this particular code, you just write print h1 of a header, what you want. Automatically it will internally convert it into this HTML tag in the response. So you don't have to worry on that. So that makes our life easy, is it not? Because you're writing a Perl program and you also have to take care of HTML tagging, that is difficult. So now if I know just the print format, which is part of my Perl programming, and if as long as I can define it like a function h1 of some a header, automatically if it is converting internally to this, I am not bothered as a programmer, right? My life is more easy. That's what it says. So something like this, something more. Now you want to define some attributes. So what is attributes? As I discussed, let's say you have some text area, you want to have define what is the name of the text area, you want to define how many rows should be there, how many columns are there, or you are defining some table. So you don't have to worry because you are not well aware of HTML. So just use the shortcut. Text area method is there inbuilt in the Perl module. So as I told you, what is it mimicking? It is your simple hash. That's what we have seen yesterday, right? Your hashes in Perl. So what is it doing? This, if you look in Perl context, this is a function. Okay. And now this is taking some arguments. So here each argument he is giving as the format of a hash key value pair, which is the only extra thing that you have to remember is he is using a hyphen here. Okay. Attribute names are preceded by hyphen. That's what you have to remember when you're writing a CGA program. Now whatever you want to write, when you send it using this, it will internally convert like this as a HTML tag. So is it not helping us? So you only know Perl way of writing a function, but internally it converts to your HTML format, and then it will make your life more easy. Now similarly, an attribute and content can both be provided to a shortcut by giving attributes explicitly as a hash reference. So you don't want to specially write something internally, so you can just give as an anchor tag like this. Then automatically it will give you a link, as we have just seen in the reply.html page where we got a direct anchor tag. So if you can use this directly, it will give them the link and it will automatically internally convert this as like this. So print, this is an anchor tag followed by press here for fruit description. This is a description of this particular tag. So internally it will show on the page like this as a link automatically. Okay. If at all you have an array reference, here it is a hash reference, correct? Because it like this, it is a hash. Now you want to have an array reference. Array reference is something you just do with a single arrow when you are referencing using your references. Now at that point what will happen? It will create a tag for each element, because array will have so many elements. For example, 10 elements are there. It will create a tag for each of them. So which we have no need have to bother. I have 10 elements. Should I create 10 tags? No. It will take care. The CGA module will take care. Okay. And now some more shortcuts. Now you also want to define, we have already discussed, there is a header, there is a content and all. So the moment you use head shortcut function, this will provide a standard header what you require. Start HTML, the moment you use this function, it will provide the beginning of the part of the HTML document till the body. Okay, the function takes one argument, the document title. So I will show you all of this again with the examples that we have. And also there is something called param function that takes a name as an argument. The function returns the value associated to the name, if any in the request. For example, if whenever you want to get some value related to a name, let's say name is a data that is being sent from your HTML tag, automatically if you say param of name, whatever is the name that, for example, I enter Bala in my HTML form. So param of name, if I use in my CGI script, it will automatically capture that name and give the value to me directly. That's what this says. Okay. Now we'll go with this an example so that it will be more explanatory and understandable. So popcorn HTML for placing an order. Okay. Now what is it? What are the contents of this? Now before I try to develop this, what all the contents I should have? I should have a client-side program which is a popcorn.html. Then I should have a server-side program which is my Perl program, popcorn.cgi, which is conventionally saved as .cgi program. Now to run this example, you must need a web browser configured. As I already discussed in the starting, I have a Apache web server. Now let's go to this particular program, popcorn.html, and view the code, what is written, and then we'll see further. Okay. So the moment I open a popcorn.html, let me share that to you as well. I think yesterday also I have shown this to you. This is a HTML page which is written on the client side. Welcome to Millennium Gymnastics Booster Club Popcorn Sales. Some title, HTML title this is, right? Now if you see this is a buyer name, and then we have to create a text box. So for address we are creating some text box. So these are all basically description of these attributes, and then we have a text box there, and then this is a table, right? If you look into this is something called a table with some data. These are radio buttons, we all know with respect to this, and these are submit order and clear form are some buttons. So how is this happening basically? If I go and view my source code, what is written? If you look into this, it's a pure HTML tagging. So as long as we know our HTML, we'll be able to write our HTML page on the client side. Okay, so I hope you people are aware of this, but I'm just trying to give you a quick indication or how it is written. So for example, for table, there is a table tag, and for each row there is a row tag, and then here he's having a table description or table data called buyer's name. Then these are the different attributes. It is a text. Okay, name is equal to name, size 30, how much the size it has to be shown on the screen and stuff. Okay, and now once we have this HTML ready, so what is our focus is on how we write our CGI program. So now I also discussed every time how does your request go? It has to go using some action and a method. So how is the action written? It is an attribute of a form. Now the moment you have something here and action is containing some URL, means what, where this particular request has to go. Now what is the method it is using? Post method. So this is what we have to know from the client side. So we can use a post method, get method. Okay, now this is all again HTML tagging. Welcome to Gymnasium and all. This is what you want to write and all. Now what is our most focus is what my CGI program on the client server side will understand. It will understand a form action with a link URL, and then it also have to need a method. What kind of method? And what is this method is post method. And as I already discussed, what is it all we are following? We are following a HTTP protocol, and post and get are the inbuilt methods for this particular HTTP protocol. Okay, and now the rest is all again your HTML tagging, which is all self-explanatory at this point. And now we have seen this form and the code on the client side. So now what happened is the moment you try to open this popcorn.html page. Okay, so now I am typing some data here. Okay, then we type some information here. Okay, and whatever is the quantity we are trying to order. So what is happening? This response will automatically have to go to a what? It has to go to your CGI file. So which file it has to refer to? It has to refer a file where I wrote internally in the HTML tag already specified. It has to go to a web server 10 dot whatever is IP address slash popcorn.cgi. So if you click on this, if you see clearly, right, it is responding with popcorn.cgi, which is your Perl file. So where you have written what code, whatever you have sent using the post method, it is got captured in this file and it is displaying as a HTML file again. Though it is a Perl file, it is displaying all in HTML format. So what we have done, what we might have done in this file, we will see popcorn.cgi file. Okay, let me share that file as well to you. Sales form. So sales form is your HTML form. We try to print a header saying CGI popcorn sales form using cgi.pm. Okay, so what we discussed, start.html. This is an inbuilt function which will automatically start your HTML tagging. Okay, I have already shown you this in the slide that start.html is an inbuilt method to your CGI module. Similarly, now the name, street, city, payments, all these methods, whatever we have selected in your HTML form, have to be captured here. So what we have discussed, we have also discussed that there is a method called param. So the moment param of name is there, it will, whatever is that HTML form attribute name is giving you, it will automatically take that. Okay, so let me show. Now whatever I just shared you again. Okay, I'm trying to shuffle between your HTML page and the CGI. If you look at here, the attribute here is name. So now with this key in your CGI, now I'm switching to CGI. Be cautious there. Now with this attribute, how is it identifying the CGI program? Oh, sorry. This is our, let me, popcorn CGI. Okay, this is our CGI program. Let me put side by side. Okay. So now this is a CGI program. So now whatever is the name there, it is identifying with the, so param of this is a function which will automatically get the value of name. Similarly, the street, whatever you are giving, right? The moment you say street, it is trying to get that street here. So whatever is the value that we are defining, it will try to capture with those keys as a value pair. So the helping function here is param. So how you want to capture data being sent from your HTML to your CGI program is using a param function. Okay, now, so this is all again your initializing of your variables. So he is using caramel nut, toffee nut, whatever you are trying to define. So he is using these functions. So whatever you are selecting there, those names he is trying to capture in local variable because he has to process on that data, or if at all you are sending some data, he has to work on it. So now in your locally, what we are doing, we are trying to get all this information from using this param of each attribute. We are copying into this value. This is like parallel assignment in Perl. We have already discussed, right? We can try to have my of $x comma $y is equal to 10 comma 20. What does it do? Automatically it will give 10 to x and $y will get value 20. But now this is a request coming from a HTML format. Therefore CGI is helping us to use param, which will automatically format or do parsing inbuilt and give you only the value. So that is more easy, right? If you don't have this kind of param functions, you will not be able to directly get the unpop value or the caramel value, whatever you have selected. So you have to parse that because HTML may be adding some tags to it. But your param function in Perl, which is inbuilt in CGI module, is helping you directly retrieve the value. This makes our life more easy. So whatever as a programmer our focus is, don't have to focus on parsing. We have to just focus on our logic, what I just highlighted there. So whatever is the logic you want to do, right? So you want to calculate total price and display. So whatever the items he has selected, you get those values and you do your logic. Here what is he trying to do? He's trying to add a total up to the bill, what the total amount is. Okay, and now after this, what is he doing? Once he has retrieved all the values, he has already computed those. Now our option is, what is our job? We have to publish all this in HTML format to the user. So what you are doing, you are saying H3 customer. So this is H3 is what? It's a HTML tag. So as I discussed already in our earlier slide, H3 of customer will automatically decode internally as a HTML tag. So arrows, like how does it do? I'm just typing it here. So internally HTML tagging, how it will be there? H3 of, okay, the string, whatever it is, what you want to type, customer, okay, and then you end with HTML tag like this, and then you do /h3. This is how it has to be decoded, correct? If it is a HTML tag, I've already showed you that the moment you use H3 of customer, it will automatically decode internally as a HTML tagging like this and give to the interpreter. So we need to have to bother on this formatting as well. Similarly is the case with all the rest. So BR is like break statement. So he's trying to give a new line character or a break after name. We'll see when we see the output format, it is easy for us to understand. Okay. So everything is inbuilt. That's what we are seeing here. We are not trying to do anything much, except we are trying to define as a programmer how you want to display the data. We are only focusing on that using the inbuilt methods. Okay. So if unpop is greater than 0, print unpopped popcorn. So this is all your logic, right? Unpop is what here is your variable name. So don't get confused with this. So this is all the inbuilt variables that it is there. So you are trying to define. Today we are saying print end HTML because we have used print start HTML here. We also have to use print end HTML. So now what was this output showing us as? The moment, let me share back the screen to you, the HTML page, H3 of customer we have just seen. So as a Perl programmer, we are only focusing on what you want to show. We are not focusing on any formatting. That's way making our life more easy and help us develop such kind of programs in a quick time. We do not have to bother what kind of parsing it has to use, how it has to use, all this kind of problems. So just this is how it is going to make our life as a programmer easy. Okay. Now in real time, when you want to deliver something to a customer, if you have to take care of a lot of these parsings, you don't know at what time what error will come. We never know if at all he's using a different browser, what issues will come. But using this kind of Perl CGI modules and inbuilt functions, they will automatically take care. Okay. I hope you got the gist of this clearly. And now I'll proceed to the next slide, sharing it back. Data form, how we have processed our data, everything we have seen very clearly. And similarly, we can also have one more example if you want, which is called a example called survey. So where the example or this particular files, when we want to develop, we have developed 3 files. One is a HTML file, then one is a two CGI files we have developed. Why? I will show you this. Why we have 2 CGI files here is just an added extra advantage that I want to give to the user, nothing much. So don't get confused. Ideally, a given HTML can have 1 CGI file, and or you want to have 2 CGI files, then you have to give the link of this CGI file in the first CGI file, which is being accessed by this HTML. Okay, so what is written in that? Let me also share that to you back. We have connect1.cgi. This is the program we have written, which is CGI program. As I told you, we can actually identify that this is a Perl program. Instead of saving it as .pl, I saved it as .cgi. I'm just repeating it for your convenience to understand once again. And therefore, we'll just close what we have discussed so it's easy for me. Connection1.cgi. Sorry, this is like consumer electronics.cgi. Let's say this is what CONELEC, that's what I named it as. And then I also have connection consumer electronics.html page, and I also said that we have a second file for this, Let me open that file to you as well. Which is connection 2 dots, sorry, consumer electronics 2.cgi. Okay, I've just opened that file as well. So I've just written some files so that I can show you that. Now let's just focus on this. Now the first thing is connect consumer electronics.html, conelec.html. Now if you look into this, so as I told you, everything it has to use is a form, and a form has got an action. So what the action states is, what is the URL? It has to post this request from your client. So what is the method they are using? Post. So most of the time the famous thing that they use is always the post method. Most of the time people does not use get in most of the cases. So that's why we see this example always with the post. Okay, and now let me also share the HTML. So if we look into this clearly, so the form is clearly showing welcome to consumer electronics, some purchasing survey is what they are trying to do. So at the end of the day, they're trying to take some category, age category, using some radio buttons. This is all HTML formatting because it's a client side programming. So the moment you select on some information, so what you have to do, ideally, as I told, we may also have a database. So in ideally what I said, I'm using my web server folder itself as my database. So the moment I submit an order, so it will try to store the data. Okay, so now the moment you select on this consumer electronics survey, it has to respond with what? A consumer electronics.cgi. So if you see here, internally okay, so why this error has come? Because in the HTML document I have referred to a wrong CGI file. That's where we got this error, where it was trying to show us popcorn.cgi file internally. So now instead of this, I can directly refer to what is the file that we want. As I have already shown you earlier, let me show and share that screen to you, the editor screen where we have that issue. File that I want to refer, I was referring to a wrong file. Therefore, what happened? It has given me that particular result when I clicked on my browser. Instead of giving me thank you for participating in my survey, what it gave me a wrong file. So it gave me this file, right, which is actually a result of popcorn file. So now the moment I click on submit, now ideally I should get the correct one. Wait, I have not saved the editor. Let me save this. Okay, therefore I've just edited this file here, where instead of popcorn.cgi file, now I have given the right file that its server has to respond with. And therefore when you look back at the browser, you will clearly see what we are intended to see. That I compare in this example compared to the earlier example is, we have actually two CGI files that we had in the code that we have seen. I mean, in the slide when I showed you, right, we said that there are two CGI files. So one is consumer electronics 1.html, the other one is consumer 2.html file. We have created, and if you look into down here, I have given an anchor reference where I have said connection 2.cgi file is what we are trying to refer here. So what is it trying to do? Here we are trying to say the moment you click on the survey, it will give you a response saying thanks for the survey, and also you can see the survey results, how many are selected and so on. So that where we have to define connection 2.html in connection 1.cgi. The moment you go there, So if you look at here, we are saying thank you for participating in the survey. This is what we have given. So you want to still go with some the survey results to display. We have to add the second CGI file here. So that's what is with respect to the survey example that we have seen. Now saving the data, a file is used to store a summary of the data. So what we can do is we can try to store the data, whatever we have sent in connection.cgi in a dat file. So that we have defined in connection.xml. So if you look into that file here, when I share it, if you look into this example here, I have used the Perl file concept and we have used survey.dat file. So that automatically will get stored in a current folder where your web browser is configured, and therefore we can try to use this data and do some operations what we want for that. So currently whatever the form request has come from consumer electronics 1.cgi, that will automatically use this file and store the data in this particular file. Whether you want to store it in a data file or you want to store in an Excel file, that is up to the programmer and the project requirement that you can use, and you can store that. Okay. Now coming back to, excuse me. Okay, these are again different shortcuts that we want to use. When you want to use in the response, a table shortcut is another module of the CGI module. So why there is a special mention of this function is, ideally we know that there is regular expressions in Perl which will use m// which is for matching an expression. Then we also seen what is s// which will substitute some expression. Then we also seen triliteration, which is tr. Okay, triliterate is a function which is inbuilt for regular expressions. Therefore, to distinguish that with your table, you have to use capital TR. That's what he is trying to specify in this slide. So that's where we have to take care. Otherwise, instead of normal TR, if you are using, it will treat it as a regular expression and you may not get the desired output. So how you are defining a table internally? This is how. So just a table and the border that we are doing automatically, and the caption what you want to do. Internally, it will try to convert this into a HTML format. And if you look at the period symbol in between the th and td functions, so here you have a th and a td functions. Then when we have a period symbol, what is it doing? We know a period symbol is used for what? Concatenation. Okay. So the output will look like this. For whatever this example that we have seen here, a tr, a table, an inbuilt function when you use, and a table caption, and then whatever the table header and rows are defined here, you clearly see that this salesperson is a header, Monday, Tuesday, this is all coming as a row headers, and then we have a left side columns and then the data filled in it. So that's what this clearly says. A salesperson, Monday, this is all table header. And now on the left side you have Mary and all. Okay, and now the table data is what we are trying to fill. So if you look at this clearly, right, the table data is filled with an array, because if you look into this table, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, these are a list of values. So this should be definitely an array. Now how is he passing this? He is using a backslash, means he is referencing, he is passing the array using a reference operator. So that is easy. So same thing it will happen when you want to use a hash table. So then your output looks like this. So in your CGI program, and you want to output a table, you can use a table function directly. So that's how you are writing a CGI programs and your HTML on the client side. And as I already discussed in the start of the session today, HTTP is a stateless protocol. What does that mean? We have given an analogy, right? So you post a request, and then every request that you are posting to the server will treat it as a completely new request or a fresh request. It doesn't remember, or it doesn't do a piggybacking with what you have, for every request, it will acknowledge back with a response. But again, you respond back with any other new query, it will treat it as a new request altogether. Therefore, whenever you want to maintain some states, why you want to maintain some states when you are using HTTP protocol which is stateless? When do you have to use the states? For example, you are using a Flipkart website, you have ordered some, you have selected some items, then when you go and click, it will go to your bank website. The moment you give your data and then all, it has to come back and remember that state. So bank website here, what it does, it will go to the bank server, it will give you back, and it has to maintain its state. It has to store this information on the client side and it has to send it back. So all these kind of mechanisms are treated or saved with respect to what we call as cookies. So this is, what is a cookie? It is nothing but it is stored as a key value pair. Again, it is, otherwise we call it as a hash in respect to Perl or associative array. So a cookie is always stored as a key value pair, okay, and it will be stored on your client side, on your web browser, okay. So key value pair is sent along with any request made by the browser of the same server. So any cookie, whichever the server is, it will only get intended or directed to that. It doesn't go to another server. So that's how the key value pair will be defined as. And what are the attributes of a key value of a cookie? What is the key? Means what is the attribute that it want to do? What is the value of that attribute? And what is the lifetime? Because a cookie cannot have a endless lifetime. Generally, they are defined with certain time limits, because if you may have some secure data and also you don't want to have the cookies all the time, or even a browser will give you a facility to go to your browser settings and clear the cookies. I think you are all, as an end user, we are all very much aware of this. Okay, so cookies are only returned to the server that created them. As I told you, they are just they identify which server the request has to go to. And cookies can be used to determine usage patterns that might not otherwise be ascertained by the server. So basically, we are using HTTP protocol which is stateless, and but to maintain some kind of states, different states, where, as I told you the example of e-commerce example just now, where you want to remember that data even in your next request, so cookies will be helpful to you. And if your browser settings are not properly enabled, the cookies may not get downloaded, or it will fail to download on your browser. At that point, you will not be able to do the required functionality. So how do you define a cookie here? So as I told, it is a hash with 3 values: name, value, and the expiration time of the cookie. So that's how this is. Okay, header, cookie, and the value of the cookie here is written here. Okay, so we also have a day cookie example.pl file that illustrates using a cookie to store the last time the page was visited. If I just run a program, let's say Perl cookie.pl, so it will show you when did I visit that particular file of that website, what is written in that file and all. So if you look at the output here, it is saying set cookie. Last time I visited is like Wednesday, 15 February. This is what is trying to give me all the data. So what is the website I visited last time is whatever we are trying to write in that file. We are trying to send a request saying when did the user visit w3.org 119, whatever is the HTML page. You want to see when did he last access this. Then when you write this cookie file, automatically it will tell you when did he last visit it. So we'll see how the cookie PL file is written quickly, and we will wind the session with respect to Perl. So let me share back so he's again using CGI module, which is standard. Then day last used. So last time, when that was it last used? He's trying to pass a cookie function directly with get the existing day of the cookie. When is it last used? Now get the current date and make the new cookie. So how do you make a cookie? Means you are trying to, when you want to make a cookie, what we have to do? We have to have a key value pair as well as the expiry time of it. So day of the week, he is defining all of them, and then he is defining all the months here. When it was accessed, it has to find out, right? And then he is trying to get a local time. And now the cookie, how is he writing? Name, last time, which is this function from here. Then the value, which is referring to a array. What is this? Day stuff. So then it is referring to a day stuff. What is this array is containing? day of the week, day of the month, and month. So is just variables that he is trying to define. So dollar month, this is a set of strings here, day of the week, all whatever you are defining each of the variables, the arrays, these are all different strings. Okay, then he is defining each of those strings as a or the list as a elements of the array day stuff, and therefore he is passing that here as a value. And expires plus 5D he is giving, means after 5 days. So now again, cookie header, we all know this is a HTML header, which is your CGA program we seen, start HTML, this is all we have clearly seen. And now when we when we have run this program, it has clearly said this is the daycookie.pl and welcome to your first visit of our website. So this is all the output it has given us. Now we are done with this, and security point of view, cookies are only returned to the server that are created to them. That is why in one way that is secure. Okay, but it is always good that we always also have to, as an end user, when we are using cookies, we can always write a program to delete a cookie automatically, or you can have to, the end user has to take care by deleting it. So generally, as I told, browsers usually provide the end user to remove all the cookies by clearing the browsing history. Okay. So this is all with respect to Perl. I think we are done with this. As a last, one thing as I promised yesterday we are trying to run one example where that was giving us an error. So let me quickly show that where running was wages.pl file. So let me share the terminal with you. Yeah. So yesterday what the problem we were facing is that we were trying to grep using a regular expression with the name that ends with the sun. So, but yesterday it was not printing this. So today if you see here, in my file, whatever I gave the input student.txt file, whatever are the names ending with SON, I am able to match the regular expression and print those values. And this is anyways our logic what we want to do additionally. So now yesterday our problem was why we were not able to print this. So as I just identified, and let me show you that clearly. Match. So now if you look at the file, employees.txt file, if you see here, the data is always split with respect to column as per our logic in the program. And if you see this file, we have all the data. Yesterday, in a hurry while we were typing, I used the space like this. And therefore what happened, it is the space is also treated as a character there. And therefore, since it is not the ending with SON, it was not able to fetch. So this, okay. So even if we now, if you look at, now I added a space. And if you look at it, so still we don't see that. Okay. That's how it is. So that was the error. So basically when we are giving the input files also, we have to be very cautious because it has to match the word ending with SON, but it is, since we have added a space, it was not able to match it. Okay. So that was the error yesterday. And now we see what was the output. Okay. Right. Yeah, I understand that, you know, in a given short sessions, we have not covered so extensively, but I've tried to cover what are all the possible concepts we have, but not very core to the depth, but to the max what is required and how you want to use it in your real programming and your real world. So I hope you all enjoyed it and understood it, but the journey should not stop here. That's my sincere request. Any programming language, unless we practice, unless we put into practice and we do extensively, we will not be able to remember things. And there will be a lot of practical errors. The simple example is yesterday, in a hurry, I was typing some spacing and all, as in the last example that we have seen, and then we were not able to retrieve or match the expression we want. So such kind of things will always happen in the real time in your real projects. So we have to be very cautious when we are writing such. Only with a regular practice you will be able to do that and achieve less errors in your program and complete your tasks. So I wish you all the best for your future and have a good day. So with respect to PHP and Ruby on Rails, whatever your upcoming sessions are. Okay. So he will be taking your sessions from upcoming next week. That is maybe on Monday. Okay. Thank you all. Bye.